Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second session of the Future of Work Hub's IO Graduate Research Spotlight. Today, our theme is Are Factors Affecting Intent to Stay in a Job? To kick off our session today, we'd like to call on the head of the IO department of UP Diliman Psych, Dr. Marshall Valencia.
Hi, good evening. So mukhang pareho pa rin ang ating participants from last week. So hindi ko na po i-introduce ulit yung Future of Work Hub. But I would just like to say again, welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. And again, papakilala ko lang po ang aming strong team sa IO. So ang Associate Director po for Future of Work Hub, ayan, talagang pamuscle pa si Ross Villamil, And itong aming mga young and energetic Ray Mark, si RM Zantua. Ayan, kaway-kaway naman. And then, nandyan po si Louie. Louie, pakita mo naman yung ano mo.
Hello, medyo sira yung webcam ko. So,
Welcome
I'll try.
No. And of course, si Jim, ang ating host. And siya po ang aming punong abala at nag-organize ito. So thank you, Jim. I wonder if nandito si Doc Pichi. Doc Pichi, if you're around, say hi po. Wala ata si Doc Pichi. All right, so yan lang po. Again, welcome and I hope you will learn a lot from these two studies. Medyo si Sam, siya po isa sa mga naabutan ko na unang estudyante when I joined the department back in 2019 pa. So I think si Sam ang pinaka-una kong napag-graduate sa aking mga mentees. And then yung batch ni Naglesi. So tonight, we're honored and we're very happy na bumalik po sila to share insights from their studies. So sige, go ahead, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Marshall. So for our first speaker, she is an experienced HR leader with over a decade of expertise in organization development, people management, and systems implementation. She finished her master's in IO in 2020 and is currently working as an HR manager. Outside of work, she is a happily married wife and a mom as she gracefully balances the beautiful chaos of her career and home life. Let us please give a warm digital round of applause to Miss Samantha Salcedo.
Thank you, Jim. Hello and good day, everyone. I'm Sam. I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear kasi I'm excited to share the key insights from my master's thesis. It's a study on servant leadership in one of the most high-pressure industries out there, the quick service restaurant sector. The heart of my research is really simple. Can people first approach thrive in a fast-paced, demanding workplace? And the answer I found is a strong yes. Even in an environment where it's least expected, servant leadership can lift performance, strengthen engagement, and make people want to stay. So before I begin, no, I'd like to thank my thesis advisor, Dr. Marshall. Sir, your guidance and encouragement really shaped this work in more ways that I can say, no. Thank you as well to our event organizers. Nagbalik yung mga memories ko nung thesis journey ko dahil kailangan kong mag-prepare at mag-present ngayon. Mabuhay po kayo. Naalala ko sabi ni Doc Marshall kasi kinakabahan ako nung nagpe-prepare sa thesis, no? Sabi niya, di kailangan OA, yung world-changing, groundbreaking, mind-blowing ang thesis. Hindi naman laging dapat ganun. Just the right amount of thorough research and something that really interests you. Yon, para matapos talaga siya. Tapos naalala ko, sabi din nung isang UP professor ko sa stat, kailangan mag-alat ka ng X number of hours every day, every week for each course. In-apply ko yun sa thesis and it worked. Natapos siya. So thank you so much sa mga wisdom sa help ninyo. And also a warm hello to our audience. And wala si Doc Peachy ngayon, pero si Doc Peachy talaga most elegant and poised moderator that I know. It's a pleasure to meet you all po. So before I dive into my study, no, let me share a little about myself, although nabanggit na ni Jim kanina. But let me share with you, no, about my background. I lead the People Systems and Analytics team at McDonald's Philippines. Yan yung slide ko. No? Medyo madami pa akong tulog dyan. Ngayon kasi medyo nagpuyat ako para mag-prepare dito eh. But anyway, in my current work, no, I design and improve the systems that shape how we measure performance, streamline processes, mga HR, and create meaningful employee experience across the organization. And actually, I'm deeply grateful to my organization for supporting me throughout my master's journey. Kaya naman my heartfelt thanks to our former HCG lead, Ma'am Chona Torre, and to my boss, our HR director, Ms. Tess Domingo, whose guidance has shaped both my academic path and my growth as an HR practitioner. Sana po pati sa PhD, supportahan niyo pa rin ako. May nasingit pang advertisement, no? Pero as a working student before, it's really a blessing to have a good education at the same time, supportive employer. Kaya naman sobrang grateful ako dito. Okay, so with that, without further ado, no, let me walk you through the flow of my session today. So you'll have a clear picture on where we're headed. We'll begin with the introduction, where I'll explain why I chose this topic, why the QSR industry is such a, hindi parang a stress test talaga siya for this leadership, no, a modern leadership, and what servant leadership truly means, both in theory and in practice. Then from there, we'll move into the research methodology and key findings. I'll give you a brief summary of that. I'll share how the study was designed, who participated, the analytical approach I used. More importantly, we'll look into the data, the findings itself. No? And after that, we'll shift to the application of servant leadership in the workplace. Ito ang favorite kong mga pag-usapan, yung application na, no? I'll discuss how servant leadership can be practiced at the organizational, managerial, and individual levels. And how these behaviors can meaningfully shape employee experience. And then finally, we'll wrap up in a nutshell, a concise synthesis of the study's key insights, implications, and what these findings mean for organizations and leaders today. Tapos nun, Q&A portion. Okay, so with that, let's start. So actually, share ko lang, if I were to start my master's thesis again, I will still choose this topic. Bakit? Kasi for leadership remains, one of the most powerful levers in any organization. Across my over a decade in HR, no, supporting corporate teams, yung frontline, I've seen how it really can transform, accelerate performance, strengthen yung culture, and transform teams. That's why leadership continues to be a relevant and evolving topic, especially as the nature of work changes. Next is QSR industry. I chose QSR not only because I worked in it, but also because it's one of the most demanding environment you can study. Fast-paced talaga, heavily process-driven, emotionally demanding, and often staffed by a younger workforce. Mabilis ang turnover. Yung engagement, di siya ganun kataas, repetitive and routines. And yet, despite these challenges, QSR remains the largest income contributor to the food service sector in the Philippines. So it raises an important question. How do we sustain people in an industry built on speed, pressure, and consistency? Then third, this leadership approach, servant leadership, people-first leadership, stands out because it flips the traditional hierarchy. Instead of employees serving the leader serves the employees with humility, compassion, and focus on human growth. So in the Filipino context, this becomes even more compelling. The research shows that Filipino employees thrives under leaders who are makatao, no? So, yan talaga parang nagmi-mirror tong servant leadership. So then we put this three together, the power of leadership, the unique pressure of QSR, and the culture alignment of servant leadership, then we get a very meaningful research intersection. And that's why if, again, if I were to start, pipiliin ko pa rin itong topic na to. Now, let's talk about the deeper rationale behind this study. No? Why this topic matters and why it matters now in an academic or research-driven way. So, the QSR industry, despite being one of the strongest contributor to the food sector, as mentioned earlier, continues to face persistent people challenges, yung nga high turnover, younger and less experienced workforce, and a process-heavy, sometimes monotonous work environment. Kaya naman, this is very challenging, make it essential for organization to ask, tayo makaka-create ng engaged, yung ideal na gusto natin, karoon ng engaged workforce, no? Ma-lessen yung turnover. And with that, dito papasok yung holistic leadership that seeks to balance humanistic concerns, no, with the business and the financial goals. Okay? And also, aside from that, I also look at what makes a Filipino leader. So with this, Filipino employees in particular values two characteristics, yung kakayahan nilang mamuno and pagiging makatao. And based on this, and based on studies, servant leadership naturally integrates both. It is a holistic leadership style that balances business goals with human needs. And that balance is exactly what the QSR environment demands. Okay, so yun yung nag-build talaga ng idea. So what is servant leadership? Servant leadership challenges, again, the traditional notion of leadership. Instead of seeing leadership as a position of authority, it views leadership as a responsibility to uplift others. In simple terms, the leader serves the people, not the other way around. A servant leader prioritize the growth, well-being, success of their teams. Technically, the servant leader removes the blocker para the employees, the members, can do their best at work. No? And they lead with respect, humility, and genuine care. Not because it's soft, but because it builds stronger, more capable people. And this approach doesn't ignore business results. Don't get me wrong. In fact, it helps balance human concerns with organizational goals. When leaders remove barriers, equip their teams, and create psychological safety employees perform better, especially in high-pressure environment. Kaya naman, servant leadership talaga. It's what I advocate. So, in the next section, we'll look at the research methodology and key findings. I'll walk you through how the study was conducted and so on. But before that, let me just briefly define yung mga research variables that I use in my thesis. Kasi para lang clear sa atin, at the center of the model is servant leadership. No? Specifically, employees' perception of the manager's servant leadership behavior. So yun yung kinapture ko. This study, this includes how leaders support, empower, and genuinely care for their people. Okay? And this leadership style then connects to two major outcome variables, which are work engagement, the level of energy, dedication, and absorption employees bring to their work, intention to stay, whether employees see themselves remaining in the organization. But the study doesn't stop at simply linking leadership to outcome. No? To understand how servant leadership creates an impact, I also examine two important psychological mediators. Dito papasok yung psychological well-being, which is how employees feel emotionally, their sense of balance, positivity, and overall mental wellness, which is very important nowadays. Yung organizational identification naman, or the sense of belongingness, yung pride, yung connection ng employees towards the organization. So these four constructs, no, engagement, intention to stay, well-being, identification, represent both emotional and behavioral outcomes that are vital in high-pressure workplaces like QSR. So that's why I chose this constructs or research variables. And as previous research shows as well, the QSR industry is particularly vulnerable talaga sa high turnover. I can attest to that, making it crucial to understand what truly keeps employees committed. So by connecting these variables, this study explores a deeper question. So let me now move on to my research problem. Now that we've established the key variables in this study, no, let's move on to the central research problem, the question that guided this entire research. At its core, this study asks, does servant leadership influence work engagement and intention to stay? And does it do so through psychological well-being and organizational identification? In other words, we're not only asking whether servant leadership works, but we're also examining how and why it works. So to address this, the research focused on two main questions. First, is there a direct or indirect relationship between servant leadership and the outcomes of work engagement and intention to stay? So this helps me determine whether servant leadership alone is enough to influence how employees feel and whether they remain with the organization. And secondly, do psychological well-being and organizational identification serve as mediators in this relationship? Meaning, do employees become more engaged and more likely to stay because their leaders contribute to a healthier emotional state and a stronger sense of belongingness? So, with that, in this next slide, showing here are the framework and the hypothesis that I came up with, that I use in my research. At the foundation is servant leadership here. Okay. And in terms of the study, proposes three key hypotheses. Hypothesis 1, servant leadership has a direct or indirect influence on employees' work engagement and intention to stay. Then my second hypothesis was an employee's psychological well-being mediates the relationship between servant leadership and both work engagement and intention to stay. And third one is an employee's organizational identification, their sense of belongingness and alignment with the organization also mediates the relationship between servant leadership and both outcomes. So in simpler terms, these hypothesis tests whether servant leaders not only influence how employees perform and whether they stay, but also whether they strengthen the psychological foundations that allow employees to thrive. So, ito yung framework that sets the stage for my methodology and the statistical approach that I used, no? So, with that, let me now walk you through, very briefly lang, kasi honestly, talagang medyo matagal na kasi siya, no? 5 years ago ba yun? So, yan, very quickly, this is how I conducted my research. No, this research was conducted in a well-established QSR company in the Philippines using a cluster random sampling to ensure fairness and representation. Then about a total of 305 employees participated in the study, all of whom directly reported to their restaurant general managers. Then these employees came from 39 stores, iba-ibang stores, giving us a diverse picture of frontline experience across different operational contexts. Then to measure the variables, this study used standardized validated scales, all with strong reliability, of course. And it's enumerated there. I'm gonna siya isa-isahin. All measures use a 5-point Likert scale and were administered through a brief pen and paper survey. And yeah, so for the data analysis, the study used ordinary least square OLS parallel mediation following the framework of Preacher and Heiss. This analytical method is known for its statistical robustness, especially when testing indirect effects. Kaya ito yung ginamit. And then it also allowed me to examine not only the direct impact of servant leadership on engagement and retention, but also dun sa mediating variables ko na psychological well-being and organizational identification. And I also used bootstrap confidence intervals with 10,000 samples, a highly reliable method for determining whether indirect effects are statistically significant. In short, the methodology ensured that the conclusions that I draw in my research are not only meaningful, but also grounded in strong analytical rigor. Also, with that, ito na. Let's move to the heart of the study, the key results. First, let's look at the work engagement. The analysis revealed a clear pattern, no? Servant leadership has both a direct and an indirect positive effect on work engagement. Okay, so what does that mean in practical terms? It means employees feel more energized, more dedicated sa work nila, and more absorbed in their daily work when they are led by someone who supports them, develops them, genuinely cares about their well-being. Okay? Then the indirect effect through psychological well-being and organizational identification were also significant. In other words, when people feel good mentally and when they feel they belong, they show up more fully at work. So both pathways were statistically meaningful, which tells us that servant leadership strengthens engagement not just through behavior, but through psychology also. Second, let's look at intention to stay. Similar pattern emerged, actually. Servant leadership directly increases employees' intention to stay, meaning employees are more likely to remain with the organization when they feel supported by their leaders, no? So overall, the results show that servant leadership works on two levels. It boosts engagement and retention directly, and it strengthens the emotional and relational foundations that keep employees committed. Actually, in my next slide, medyo gumawa ako ng mas simpleng summary ng results, no? Para lang mas madaling ma-appreciate. Okay? Para hindi siya masyadong academic and theoretic. So in this slide, I'm showing you that the why behind the findings. More on first, servant leadership has a significant positive effect nga on work engagement. Employees under it feel more energetic, yan. Parang mas ano lang siya. Inano ko lang, nilagay ko lang siya into a more simplified version. Pero ganun din yung sinabi ko. Based on what I mentioned earlier, ganun din naman yung results niya. So in a nutshell, these two factors fully explain why servant leaders are able to elevate engagement and retention. So meaning leadership doesn't just change behavior, it changes how people feel and how they see themselves inside the organization. So yeah. So if anything, these findings remind us that servant leadership is not a soft leadership style. It is actually a strategic advantage in industries where people are under pressure every single day. Ano siya? Strategic advantage. So in my next slide, I'll discuss the practical implications, application of my research. But before that, let me just share with you some of the companies that already are using servant leadership now as one of their core leadership style. First is Starbucks. They're known for people first culture. Leaders invest heavily in their employees or partners. They call them partners through development opportunities, emotional safety. Yeah. Another example is Popeyes under former CEO Cheryl Batchelder, where she transformed the business by prioritizing service, not just service to customers, but service to franchisees, employees, and communities. So, yeah. And last is the Chick-fil-A. Actually, marami pang iba. Hindi ko na lang in-include dito. But just to share with you some of the specific, ano bang mga pwede talagang ma-apply, specifically at the organizational level. So, ipakita ko na lahat. And first is having that core value, malasakit. Kasi malasakit talaga is the heart of servant leadership. No? It reflects genuine care for the people, concern for customers, and compassion for the community we serve. Aside from that, we can also partner with nonprofit organizations. Yeah. And then next is emphasizing on a coaching culture where talagang you help employees grow, not just instruct them. Okay? You invest in their development, their training, and last is a holistic employee benefit that covers not just yung financial, but meron ding psychological. Yung iba pa nga may spiritual pa. Ganun level talaga. At the managerial level naman, first managers, what managers can do para maging matawag silang servant leader, they can ensure their people are equipped to succeed. Meaning, the competencies are there, yung resources ay maganda, quality, tama, para mabigay nila yung best nila. Second, servant leaders show genuine concern, both personal and professional. Hindi lang puro laging usapan, puro work, work, work. Meron ding side na personal touch. Then third is servant leaders treat employees as partners. Yung kagaya nga sa Starbucks, ganun sila, di ba? Not just subordinate. Kasi meaning they involve them in solving problems, share responsibilities, and make them feel trusted. Paano naman sa individual level? So, applicable din to at the employee or even with us sa individual level, no? As a practitioner, we play a big role in shaping the culture as well. So first, we need to understand and internalize the principles of servant leadership. Ano ba siya? Hindi lang siya soft leadership eh. Strategic leadership talaga siya. People first mindset. Second, we practice self-accountability. Servant leader, even at the individual level, recognizes their role in contributing to a healthy team environment. We take responsibilities for our actions, our performance, and our behavior because the culture really begins with us, no? And then third, we uphold the highest moral and ethical standards at all times naman to, di ba? Hindi naman siya. Kahit sa industry naman to. And the fourth one is we develop a system-wide perspective. This means understanding how our work affects the bigger organization, even not just inside, but even in the communities. So, in short, servant leadership is not just a leadership style. It's a way of showing up, whether we are leading a team or contributing as an individual. And when every person in the organization embraces this mindset, the entire culture grows. Okay. So, with that, I'm into my last topic, no? So, but before that, let me just briefly bring us back to our outline. We discussed the introduction, the context, the reason behind studying servant leadership in QSR, then the research methodology, the key findings, and the application, practical application of servant leadership, no, at the organizational, managerial, and employee level. And the last section brings everything together. It's where we connect the research back to the real world leadership and reflect on what these findings ba talaga truly means, no? Paano ba siya ma-apply? But before that, share ko lang yung mga limitation. Syempre, sa lahat naman ng studies, merong mga limitation. Let me just show everything. So, syempre yung my study is really a cross-sectional design. Since it's cross-sectional design, the study only looked at data from one point in time. It can really show cause and effect relationship. So future studies could use a longitudinal or experimental design or even add qualitative methods, no? Ganda yun, para mas richer yung insights. Single organization sampling, because my participants came from one organization, pwede siyang di mag-apply sa iba. So, other studies can also test it kahit hindi lang sa QSR in different industries, pwede rin. Then, self-reported survey, the study relied on self-reported survey, which may introduce common method bias. So, to reduce this, future research could collect data from multiple sources, like yung 360, hindi lang din sa, sa individual, no? Then, limited outcome intervening variables. This study only focused on work engagement in mga ganong behavior, which narrows the picture. Future research can also explore the impact of servant leadership on other employee outcomes. Hindi lang to. Ito lang talaga yung nakafocus sa study na to. And then research framework scope. The current model doesn't compare servant leadership with other leadership styles. No? Future studies could also examine how servant leadership influences QSR employees compared to other styles like situational leadership, authentic leadership, or combining them both. Okay. And with that, let me move on to my last slide. Before we proceed to the Q&A, let me bring together the main essence of this research. Okay? The findings of this study actually demonstrate something powerful, meaning servant leadership meaningfully strengthens psychological well-being and organizational identification, and these in turn enhance both work engagement and intention to stay. This tells us that leadership in a fast-paced environment like QSR is not just about operations, process, or speed. It is at its core about people talaga. So when leaders serve, when they listen, develop, support, and uplift employees feel valued. They feel that they belong. They feel that their work matters. And when people feel these things, they naturally show stronger commitment, higher energy, and a greater desire to remain part of the organization. So this research also highlights an important message for organizations, no, looking to future-proof their workforce. If we want to stay relevant to our customers, we must first stay relevant to our people or our employees. Diba? Leadership development is not optional, it's foundational. Being an effective leader means being willing to serve, because in the end, EX is equals to CX. Employee experience is equals to customer experience. That I truly believe in. When we take care of the employee experience, the customer experience follows. And in QSR, that kind of leadership is not just nice to have. It may actually be what employees need the most. And that is it for my research. I'm deeply grateful for this opportunity to share a study that is not only academically meaningful, but also deeply connected to the work I do and the principles I truly believe in. I hope this research contributes to the ongoing conversation about leadership, well-being, and what it truly means to serve people in the workplace. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Sam. So for questions, marami po tayong options. Pwedeng send it to everyone on chat or unmute, use the Q&A function, or you may DM me your question. Wait lang. Ang dami nagsisend. Sandali lang.
Uy, huwag niyo kayo pressurein.
Pwede din tayo mag-send sa chat, guys. Mag-isa lang ako dito. So, ito. Given that the data was collected before the pandemic, do you think the findings would still hold post-COVID?
Actually, super yes ang sagot ko dyan, Jem. Kasi, sakto pa nga siya eh. Kasi yung, I also included the psychological well-being, which is very relevant up to now. And lalo na sa generation ngayon, actually in our workforce, ang malaki talaga, halos 90% plus Gen Z. So, considering that kind of, generation, ano yung nature nung how that generation works, how their psyche, their preference in terms of leadership, very I can say that this kind of leadership can be applied to them as well. Eh, kahit na tama ka naman, ano to, actually, hindi siya, pre-pandemic nga siya. Kasi nung nag-thesis, naalala mo, Sir Doc Marshall, nung nag-thesis, defense ako, virtual.
Wow.
Nairaos. Thank you talaga, sir. Pero yes,
Umabot ka sa
effective.
umabot ka sa pandemic,
Sa
no?
pandemic,
When?
no?
Okay. Thank you. Akala ko may kasunod pa, sir. Siguro ito, this one, since of your work experience, how can QSR management teach servant leadership? Parang what does servant leadership look like specifically in QSR kaya? Maybe from your experience in your company.
Siguro magsa-cite ako ng experience from based on my role as a people leader, no? Para mas mas madali ko ma-explain. In terms of practicing servant leadership or people first leadership, it is when you remove the barriers para makapag-work ng maayos yung mga tao ko. No? So meaning, kapag may concern sila, kahit simpleng laptop concern lang, nagbabagal yung laptop nila. Okay? Kailangan ko yun asikasuhin agad. That's being a servant leader in a sense na hindi ko muna uunahin yung report na kailangan ko, yung meeting. I focus on the well-being. Maayos ba, lahat ba in place for my people para ma-ensure ko that they can perform better in their current roles. That's just an example. Pero another example is, merong process, for example, process na dahil doon nade-delay sila or dahil doon kailangan nilang gawin ng 2 beses or mag-rework. When they raise that to me, or when depende kung paano na-reach sa akin yung ganong kind of problem, no, or issue, I work on it immediately. Meaning, hahanap ako ng way, iintindihin ko yung proseso, titignan ko kung saan ba tayo pwede mag-improve, anong pwede nating gawin, anong pwede nating simplify para ma-ensure na hindi kailangan magdumoble yung process para sa tao ko. So that in a sense is servant leadership. Meaning, hindi ko na lang siya hayaan na, sige lang, gawin mo na lang yan. Trabaho mo naman yan eh. No, I ensure that I help my member para makapag-work sila ng maayos. So, just those are just some samples, no? And it applies sa store, sa QSR, sa mismong operations. Kasi, as mentioned, I also design mga processes for them. Ensure namin na hindi nila gagawin, currently we are migrating systems. Ina-ensure namin na hindi nila gagawin yung HR process na kailangan nilang gawin twice. No, kami na bahala. Kami gagawa nung magpa-parallel kami dun sa old system para lang ma-ensure na hindi na nila yun gagawin 2 times. So parang para lang convenient sa kanila, para mas simple yung process sa kanila. So those are just samples, no? Pero I can cite several, hindi lang yun.
Okay, thank you. So, marami questions. Available naman po si Sam through direct message.
Yes.
May next speaker pa po tayo. So, once again, let's give a digital warm round of applause to
Thank
Sam. Thank you,
you.
Sam.
Thanks, Jim,
Okay.
Doc Marshall.
And let's take a 5-minute break and we will resume at 6:55. Thank you.
Naku, Sam, ang hirap pala maging no? People leader.
Sinabi mo pa, sir.
Hindi kaya napapamper? Ano ba? Na-imagine ko lang yung parang bilang magulang, no? Parang sinuspoil. Hindi ko ba sinuspoil?
Yan ang critic ng servant leadership.
Oo.
Naka-mute ka, Sam.
Mute ka, Sam.
Yes, Doc. Yun nga,
Diba?
actually maraming critic talaga to and hindi siya well embraced by corporate kasi nga servant leader, parang napaka-soft.
no?
Pero people first, kaya ko nga tinerm yung title ko as people first. pero sir, hindi naman siya kasi it still balances dapat yung business goals. Pero ma-ensure mo na magagawa nila yun kasi you remove the barriers for them to do that.
Pero dyan ako may issue, Sam, no? Kasi kilala ang QSRs, no? Pagka dun sa value discipline ng 3C and Warsima, nandun sa best cost. No? So, at the end of the day, talagang mura, hindi ka pwede magmahal ng burger mo. Kakainin ka ni Jollibee, kakainin ka ni Burger King or whatever ng mga competition. No? So, yun ang tinignan ko. Wala halos na QSR na gumagamit ng servant leadership. Hindi din papaya. Kahit tinignan mo siya, hindi imposible yan sa kanila because you're after growth, process, standardization, no? So magkakaroon ng conflict. As a matter of fact, magandang kwento dito, yung pelikulang The Founder ni Ray Kroc. Kasi ang servant leaders, si McDonald's, the McDonald brothers, they're the servant leadership, quality, care, no? Pagpasok ni Ray Kroc na nagpalaki sa McDonald's, hindi mahalaga sa kanya, no? Sa kanya, expansion, growth, no? So ako na, well, it works. Ang talagang tanong ko, Sam, dun sa pinakita mo kasi, nag-improve ba yung yung attrition rate nyo? Mas bumaba. Baka sabi nyo, mataas yung turnover no? Sabi mo, dapat pagka may ganito, umayos ba?
Kaya nga, sir, kaya siya, that really piques my interest. Kasi sobrang effective ba? Kaya ba niyang maging effective sa ganitong kind of environment? Remember, sa kitchen, sa operation, sa back-end, fast-paced yan. Talagang sigawan yan, yung burger, yung chicken, yung fries. Ganun siya ka-intense sa tindahan, promise. Kaya nga po yung point is, effective ba to? But guess what? Currently, yung mga shinare ko pong applications kanina, being practiced already by the organization that I studied. Yung mga iba doon, yung pagkakaroon ng mga world-class training, coaching culture, malasakit as values, it's there already. Kaya, sir, parang, in terms of, ano ba yung turnover or That I cannot really answer kasi even wala akong comparison eh. Wala akong parang talagang in-implement na ito gamitin natin to kasi nag-study ako. Hindi naman ako nag-compare ng A and B na nangyari. Kaya I cannot really answer that. But honestly, kahit na parang sobra siyang hindi gagawin ng ibang organization, ng QSR especially, it's being,
Correct.
yung mga some samples, yung applications are being practiced already.
Correct. Ang issue ko pa, ilang percent ang company-owned over franchisee? Tsaka, how do you ensure standardized across? Kasi meron ako, hindi marami lang nakikinig, malalaman ko ang
Oo nga eh.
company-owned na
Baka
McDo,
pagalitan ako pag nakita ng boss ko itong
malalaman ko ang company-owned na McDo doon sa hindi, doon sa franchising. Example ko sa iyo, sino may-ari nung sa Lakeview, diyan sa NLEX? Yan ang puntahan ng mga taga Supreme Court bago pumunta ng La Union. Sino may-ari nun?
Hindi ko memorize.
Pero franchise ba yon? Sam?
Hindi ko kabisado.
Siguraduhin ko sa'yo, hindi.
Madami. Ano siya?
Siguraduhin kong hindi. Napakadumi ng
Balikan
kanyang
kita,
banyo.
sir. Isa-search ko.
Tingnan mo nga kung sino may-ari. Kasi imposible. Pag sinabi mong McDo, yan, the best ang banyo ng McDo. O tingnan niyo yan sa Lakeview na yan. My God, no? Parang sa Tondo. Ay, sorry for the being very... Sorry po. I mean, hindi ako pero... Diba? Pero tingnan mo yan siya. Anyway, yun ang isang challenge, no? Kasi siguro parang kung hindi ako nagkakamali, mga 80 to 90% lang talaga yung owned, company owned, no? Meron ka mga franchisee, diba?
Yes, meron talagang franchises.
Oo, no? Yan pang isang challenge dyan.
Yes.
See. Napakaganda ng study kasi ang tingin ko dyan, mag-work talaga yung servant leadership in a very collectivist culture like ours, no? Pero yung performance-driven, yung very individual, Western, hirap yan eh. Hirap yan sa amin, no? Kaya nung pinapakita mo rito, feeling ko mas ayos siya, no?
Okay. Thank you, Sir Ross. Thank you, Sam. So everyone, welcome back. So for our second speaker graduated with a degree in OrgCom from UP Manila and finished her MA in Psych in UP Diliman. She is currently an HR practitioner specializing in training and development and is the senior digital specialist at Philip Morris International Business Solutions. Let us please give a warm digital round of applause to Glessy Toazon.
Thank you, Jim. Let me just share my screen. Can you see it now?
Yep.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this session. So today I'm pleased to present my master's thesis titled The Impact of Workplace Friendship on Organizational Commitment and Intent to Stay, the Mediating Role of Occupational Self-Efficacy. So here's the roadmap of my discussion. And before I proceed, I'd like to give you a brief background kung bakit ito yung napili kong topic for my thesis. It was actually inspired by my own experience. I used to work in a global company for 9 years. And during the pandemic, when I wrote this thesis, it made me reflect, bakit nga ba ako tumagal ng ganon katagal sa isang kumpanya? So naisip ko, beyond the salary and benefits, what made me stay that long was because of the people I worked with, especially mga friends na nakilala ko along the way while working with the company. Kasi diba, let's face it, wala naman talagang madaling trabaho, walang trabaho na hindi stressful, pero somehow gumagaan yung work natin kapag maayos yung relationship natin sa mga ka-team natin, sa supervisor natin, at lalo pa kapag may mga friends tayo, and the same company that we can rely on. So enough of the dramatic introduction. So now let's focus on the discussion of the study. So the purpose of this quantitative research was to examine the associations between workplace friendship, organizational commitment, and intent to stay. in the context of business process outsourcing and shared services industries. We also investigated the mediating role of occupational self-efficacy and the moderating effects of quantity of friends, quality of relationship, and age. So why in the context of BPO and shared services industries? Aside sa doon kasi ako nag-work, we know that these service-oriented industries invest in a lot of employee engagement activities that actively support camaraderie, teamwork, and friendship. Thus, we assume that the prevalence of friendship is already high in these industries, and it is important for us to examine how friendship contributes to desirable work-related outcomes. So, alam din natin na sa mga industries na to, they are also experiencing high attrition or voluntary turnover rate. And this study may have valuable implications for these industries. Oops. So, ano nga ba yung workplace friendship? As defined in the literature, it's a non-exclusive workplace relations that involve mutual trust, commitment, reciprocal liking, and shared interests or values. So I think one of the keywords also here is yung non-exclusive relations because it clearly differentiates friendship from that of the romantic relationship. But just like any other relationship, it involves trust, commitment, mutual liking, and shared values and interests. So in this study, we also measure two aspects of friendship, namely friendship opportunity and friendship prevalence. So friendship opportunity, it refers to having, a friendly atmosphere at work, while friendship prevalence is the actual existence of friendship. So for the study, the theoretical framework that is the foundation of the study is Bandura's social cognitive theory. So social cognitive theory highlights self-efficacy as the main and the most proximal predictor and antecedent of human behavior. So what you see in the screen is the hypothesized model that we tested in the study. Here we have the two aspects of friendship, and then we relate it to two dimensions of commitment, namely effective and continuous commitment, and to another outcome variable, which is intent to stay. So occupational self-efficacy serves as the mediator. And in the model, we also have several moderator variables, which are represented by the dotted lines. Here we have quantity of friends, quality of relationship, and age as moderators. So with regards to the quality of relationship, we have two, collegial and special peer. So this refers to the type of friends that we have depending on our level of closeness. So with collegial peer, this is someone who we consider as our work buddy. We may not share every detail of our life with this person, but this person is more than merely an acquaintance. So we may consider this person as a friend or a colleague, and we also interact with this person on a fairly regular basis. While the special peer, on the other hand, this is a person who we consider as our best friends. We would be friends with this person even if we do not work together. And we consider this person not just as a coworker, but there's this feeling that we know each other very well. Okay, so those are the types of friends that we have according to literature. So for the methodology to address the research questions, I used a correlational survey research design to examine the relationships between the variables. So first, I did a pilot testing of the instrument to 30 participants, and it was subjected to reliability analysis. And upon finalizing the questionnaire, the survey was administered online using Google Forms. And the survey link was posted in my personal Facebook page and in Facebook groups for BPO and shared services employees. Some respondents were also invited to participate via direct message in LinkedIn. And the data collection took place from June to August of 2020. So it was also during the pandemic that I have this study. And the analysis were done using multiple regression analysis to test the mediation and moderation assumptions. So each model was estimated twice, once with no statistical controls, and once controlling for job level, organizational tenure, company size, and extroversion, as these factors correlated with our predictor and some of the environment. So may control variables. So regarding the participants, for the online survey, we got a total of 326 participants. We used purposive sampling, and participants were selected on the condition that they were at the time employed in the BPO and shared services industries. And of the 326 respondents, about 70% of them were females, and the age range from 17 to 60 years old. And the average age was 31 years old, while the average tenure was 4 years. And the demographic profile of the respondents is further elaborated in the table that you can see here. So regarding the instruments, the survey instrument was composed of 6 main parts. We have the demographic questions, the quantity and quality of collegial and special care. So in the second component, I asked the participants whether they have a special or collegial peer and how many peers of each type they had at work. I also asked them to rate each peer type in terms of level of trust, emotional support, the quality of communication, and the overall satisfaction using a 5-point Likert scale ranging from very poor to excellent. And then the other scales were derived from existing instruments. Now let's go to the more exciting part, which are the findings. So looking at effective commitment. So effective commitment, it refers to the employee's emotional attachment to the organization. And we found that the existence of actual friendship or the friendship prevalence has significantly predicted effective commitment, as we expected. And then when it comes to the mediation, occupational self-efficacy had no mediation effect between the two variables. In terms of our moderator variables, we also found that the moderating variables had no effect in the relationship between friendship and effect. So direct yung effect ng friendship with effective commitment. And then when it comes to continuance commitment, the continuance commitment refers to the perceived cost that the employee associates with leaving the organization. And take note that continuance commitment, it develops when employees make an investment that would be lost by leaving the organization. And because of the difficulties associated with direct measures of investment, we assumed in the study that workplace friendship is one of the investments that employees have. So what we found is that neither of the two aspects of friendship significantly predicted continuance commitment, and that occupational self-efficacy also had no mitigating effect. And also our assumptions about moderations were also not supported by the result. Okay. Now moving on to another variable, which is intent to stay. This refers to the employee's desire to continue his or her employment in the organization. We found that both aspects of friendship significantly predicted intent to stay. And between the two, it showed that friendship prevalence was the stronger predictor. We also observed that occupational self-efficacy partially mediate the relationship between friendship opportunity and intent to stay. Here, we also saw that the quality of relationship moderates the relationship between friendship and intent to stay, while the quantity of friends and age had no moderating effect. Lastly, let's turn our focus on the findings about occupational self-efficacy, which refers to an individual's confidence in their competence to fulfill work-related tasks or activities. So regarding the hypothesis mediating role of occupational self-efficacy in the relationship between friendship and organizational commitment, it was not confirmed. And this study found that occupational self-efficacy partially mediates the relationship between friendship opportunity and intent to stay. This means that occupational self-efficacy sources should be taken into account when planning our interventions aimed at increasing the intent to stay when there is an opportunity for friendship in the workplace, but having actual friends or maintaining the relationship is challenging, such as in the case of an organization composed of virtual employees. Interestingly, we also found that occupational self-efficacy did not significantly predict effective commitment and continuous commitment. A possible explanation for this unexpected finding may be that occupational self-efficacy's effect has been canceled out because friendship was present in the model. So this suggests that friendship was the stronger predictor of commitment than occupational self-efficacy. And then in terms of direct effect, we found that occupational self-efficacy significantly predicted intent to stay. I know it's a lot of information to take in, but looking at the big picture, how do we make sense of the results? So the results reveal that when it comes to predicting organizational commitment and intent to stay, environmental factors such as the workplace friendship was a more powerful predictor of these desirable outcomes than occupational self-efficacy. And I think the result, it was expected in the context of Filipino culture, as Filipino workers are generally more relationship-oriented and less task-oriented. So this finding should not be taken against social cognitive theory, which highlights self-efficacy as the main and most proximal predictor and antecedent of human behavior, motivation, and attitude. So this conclusion is only applicable as far as the study samples are concerned, and also further research is encouraged to validate the research findings. So ano naman yung practical implications natin ng study for us employees, managers, or HR professionals? First, the inclination to form teams and groups within organization is one of the main reasons why examining workplace friendship is important. We know that in general, people who get along well work together better. Thus, research on workplace friendship could be used to help create more effective teams, and managers should attempt to create more effective teams by increasing friendship opportunities in the workplace. This can be done through both structured and unstructured ways. So structured ways may include team building activities about teamwork, conflict resolution, and effective communication that aim to deepen and strengthen work and personal relationships. Second, by fostering the development of friendships at work, organizations would benefit in a lot of ways, as it was found to have a positive effect on occupational self-efficacy, effective commitment, and intent to stay. So managers who are seeking to increase workers' commitment and reduce turnover should pay attention to the study, especially sa mga industries katulad ng BPO and shared services companies that have high attrition. And then third, Management and HR professionals may use some of the information presented here as additional inputs in developing an effective retention plan to keep their best employees. So lastly, let's talk about the limitations and recommendations for future research. So, nakita nyo kanina about 90% of the respondents are millennials, a generation known for favoring working in place. So the result of the study may vary if there is a more representative sample in terms of age. So therefore, future research should test the model using a more representative sample by having maybe a specific quota per age group or generation. And second recommendation is that because the study sample was composed of BPO and shared services employees only, we don't know whether these results can also be generalized and applied to other corporate settings or to other types of organizations. So the generalizability of the present findings should therefore be examined in future research in other industries or types of organizations. And then third limitation, it concerns the cross-sectional design of the study, which does not allow for any causal inference and conclusions about the impact of each factor. So moreover, the conclusion on the direction of effects are not conclusive. Thus, future research should also focus on developing a longitudinal model to verify the directionality of the effects and to better understand the workplace friendship phenomenon and its consequences. It would also be fruitful as well to employ a mixed method design in the future, so include qualitative method as well. A direction for future research is to investigate the effects of friendship on job performance, because the study revealed that workplace friendship is a significant predictor of occupational self-efficacy, and self-efficacy is known to be a predictor of performance. So it would be interesting, I think, to find out the possible links of friendship opportunity and friendship prevalence on job performance. So that's actually the end of my presentation. But before I end it, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Sir Marshall, my ever-reliable thesis advisor, and Ma'am Pichi was also one of my panelists in the thesis defense. So thank you everyone for listening, and I'll turn you over to Jim for the Q&A.
Thank you, Glassy. So again, for our questions, manalo tayong avenues. Okay, our first question is, do you think workplace friendship is more important for younger employees more than older employees? Na medyo na-allude na natin to kanina sa millennial sample.
Tiningnan kasi natin yung age as moderator, pero hindi siya na-support ng result. But again, yung samples kasi natin were mostly millennials. So that's why yung recommendation natin for further research is to have a representative sample for each generation para matest talaga natin whether age matters in this type of relationship.
And then slightly related, pero siguro to it's more on your experience so far as a professional. Pero how does one navigate keeping up workplace friendships while also maintaining professional interactions? Kasi syempre 'di ba, minsan may mga professional interaction na could parang jeopardize or could make you question, di ba friends tayo, bakit ganon? So maybe based on your experience at work, ano kaya yung mga best tips or some guidelines that we can do to kind of manage these boundaries?
First is to really set up a boundary kasi let's prioritize work pa rin, no, while engaging in this type of relationship. So even if we know that we're friends, if we work together and may mga tasks tayo together, then we should still keep it professional. while we are working towards those tasks or yung mga um, activities natin inside the workplace. So I think yun lang. We have to think first and foremost that we are employees and we have responsibilities to do. And then secondary na lang yung yung pagiging friends.
Pwedeng dagdag ko to, Jim. Actually,
Sure, sir.
that's the critic doon sa Juan Glessy, di ba? Kasi yung, alam nyo ba na merong 12 Gallup questions? And one of the, usually ginagamit, yun yung like yung sinasabi, Marcia, parang 170 plus yung engagement survey natin. May 12 lang na ginagamit. 35 years, no? Number 10 question is, do you have a best friend at work? Very controversial yon kasi best friend, sasabihin best friend, hindi professional masyado. Kasi ang konsepto natin ng best friend, yun nga, parang chami-chami, no? But I guess tama yung sinabi ni Glessy, pagka may boundaries na when you say best friend, ito yung meron kang deep trust, ito yung may psychological safety, ito yung may emotional connection ka dun sa taong yon, ano? So, best friend kasi ang dating ng best friend, konsepto natin na beshi, yung sagot ko, nasa likod mo ko, na gano'n, no? But I think what's really very important here is that if you look at the 12 Gallup questions being used 35 years ago, yung number 10 question is very important. Yung study ni Glessy only really highlights, no, the importance of us having friends. Sa totoong buhay, lahat tayo nagtatrabaho na siguro, lahat ng mga nandito. Meron kang best friend sa kuwan mo na ano tawag, lalo na sa atin, na konsepto natin na kapwa, yung ating pakikipagpalagayang loob, pakikisama, itong mga bagay na ito, pasok na pasok sa kulturang Pilipino, no? So, sa Pilipinas, isa sa predictors talaga na ikaw ay magsistay pagka meron kang best friend sa trabaho. So ako, natutuwa ako sa study na ito. Sana mas mapalago pa natin. No? And some future students would really look into, how important is having a best friend. Again, yung best friend, hindi yung best friend, kailangan i-qualify natin, no? Would really help us, stay more in our company or help our retention strategies.
Thank you, sir. Meron tayo sa Q&A function. Have you seen cons of friendships and the asymmetrical help that it provides for some respondents or employees? So I guess downsides of friendships.
Ayun, hindi natin siya in-explore with the current study, but I think it would also be good direction for future research. I think there are also downsides with having friends at work. Kasi syempre hindi naman lagi yung di ba? Hindi naman kayo laging chami-chami yan. So may mga maliliit na bagay na may pinagtatalunan din kayo. So it may affect the work, yes. So it would also be fruitful to see kung ano nga ba yung mga plots ng friendship.
I think the next question slightly related to what Sir was talking about a while ago. Do you think, based on what you know, incorporating indigenous concepts like kapwa or pakikisama into the framework could better capture the findings or the dynamics that you discovered in the study?
Yes, I think this Filipino traits can better explain yung study kasi mas ma-explain natin siya in the Philippine context with the streets.
Madaming questions about friendship, obviously, kasi yung main topic. Pero specifically for friendships between employees and supervisors, in your opinion, how can this be developed without compromising being professional?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Hindi ko pa kasi na-experience. Syempre, ang hirap naman, diba, pagka alam natin na supervisor natin and then get to be friends with. Pero we can maintain a friendly atmosphere, ganyan. Pero I think possible din naman makipag-friends with your supervisor. Siguro we just really have to maintain boundaries kasi isipin natin, siya pa rin yung leader, siya yung may say sa mga or decision about our work. So yes, we can be friends with them, pero yun nga, we just have to think about the limitations and the boundaries.
Siguro it would be good to ask your supervisor once upon a time. Sir Marshall, baka may masasabi kayo on this question.
It would help, 'di ba? Kung ako halimbawa supervisor, tapos medyo chummy ako sa mga colleagues ko, mas madaling makiusap eh. Mas madaling humingi ng extra favor, I mean professional extra favor, no? To, mag-extend sila ng konting yung energy and in that sense. Pero ang problema, yun na nga eh, pag may mga favors naman in a sense na nako-compromise, for example, yung integrity, between the two, doon yung danger pumapasok. So, parang double-edged siyang sword. Ikaw, Ross, may
Dagdag ko, ako marami, actually to be honest with you, no, as a head of HR, no, ang beshi ko, hanggang ngayon tawag ko sa kanya beshi, no, she's our admin head, no. Pero ang konsepto, ang pinapasok ko dito yung konsepto ng hiya. Mas may hiya tayo, 'di ba kaibigan mo, mahiya ka naman, yung boss mo, malaki ang binigay sa yung tulong. As a matter of fact, hindi rin masama sa amin na minsan kinukuha naming ninang ng mga anak namin, kukunin kang ninong, no? Bahagi yan. Ako lang ang tingin ko rito, isang mature na organisasyon na merong maliwanag na performance management system. Maliwanag yon. Kasi kung ito ay, yun nga, alam mo, minsan, ulitin ko, minsan ang problema natin yan kapag nasa government, no? Hindi talaga maayos yung kanilang strategic performance system, no? Dumadating yung gano'n na parang tanguan na lang, okay na lang, no? Pero kung halimbawa nasa isang corporate setting ka na meritocracy, maliwanag yung objective mo, kakaroon kayo ng performance review, minsan ikaw pa yung mahiya. Ito ang laging sinasabi ng kaibigan kong si Arlene, Beshi ang tawag ko sa kanya, no? Sabi ko, bakit ba tayo magkaibigan pa ngayon? Sabi niya, kaibigan ko kayo, Ross. Pagka hindi ko ginawa yung trabaho, mapapahiya tayo mismo, So again, merong accountability, no? Mawawala ito kung maliwanag ang performance management measures ng kumpanya. Magkakaproblema ka kung wala. Yung tanguan lang, yung lahat dinadaan sa friendship, magkakaroon. Yun ang tingin ko, ha? Ako wala ako, ha? Dapat kaibigan tayo. Hindi ako wala, tapos na yung panahon na yung boss, yung it's my way or the highway type. Yun ang sumunod ka, kilala mo ba ako? Meron akong dati boss ganito, sinabi sa akin ng factory manager, halika nga rito, Ross, saan ka? Tingnan mo yung Oilstra. Asan ka? Sabi ko, eto ako. Saan ako? Eto. Nasa taas ako, sumunod ka sa akin. Wala na yung ganun, mahirap na. Si Marshall, sinabi na kanina, no, mas madaling makiusap, mas madaling, idalhin yung organisasyon o yung objective no somewhere. No? So sa akin talaga, ako, I really thrive in an organization where I have best friends, no? Lahat sila beshi ko. No? Pero alam din nila na pagdating ng performance management, kahit chami-chami ako sa iyo, kahit sa mga estudyante ko, kahit chami-chami tayo, di ba? In our performance review, you can get a 2.5 ganito because it's not about friendship. Meron tayong objective. Meron tayong goal na kailangan nating i-achieve. So if it's clear, wala tayong problema dyan. At maliwanag yun.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And with that, that's our final question and also the final question for the whole graduate research spotlight. Once again, thank you, Glassy, for spending the time and sharing with us your research. So maybe to just wrap things up, let's again hear once more from Sir Marshall.
May ano ba pahabol? Ito po ang aming first opening salvo, no, yung the 2 sessions, no, as far as kung napansin nyo, the Future of Work Hub. So ito po ang aming lab, no, sa IO, and we are very happy that we are starting, no, to move the programs of this hub, and sana maging part po kayo, no, sa mga further activities namin. So isa lang po ito, yung research component. Meron po kaming abangan nyo, no? Meron kaming ano sabi ko?
Podcast.
No, no, may weekly podcast, no? Inaayos na po namin. So iimbitahan po namin itong mga mga graduates, no, mga alumni natin maging guests, no, doon sa ating mga ano. And mind nyo, maraming mga practitioners, no, na high ranking here and abroad na graduates din, no, ng ating department, no. So hopefully we can tap them.
Mga HR heads na yung mga yon.
Mga HR heads, no?
April, si Mitzi, si
Mitzi,
Hannah.
oo. Marami po tayong medyo high ranking na mga graduates which we could tap. Also, research collaborations with organizations. Some, alam mo, marami kaming pwedeng magawa, no, na mga research
Oo.
sa
Sure, sir.
Macdo.
Oo. If we can collaborate with you, no, as a department, as a program.
Pati kay Iglesia sa Philip Morris.
Yes. So do let us know, no, kung may gusto kayong mga collaborative na research projects which will benefit, of course, your organization and the department as well. So again, to everyone, thank you very much, no, for being part, no, of this initiative. Maraming salamat. Jim, thank you.
Thank you,
Jim.
everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank
Really.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pumunta ba si Louie?